Apologize for the delay in getting this out to you. I meant to do this way earlier. For whatever reason, this software was not on my computer this morning. So I got it now. Your test is tomorrow. We're going to go over these problems. Just make sure you pay attention. The document is in the 3.7 file section on Teams. You can follow along on your phone or print this out. But these are the problems that you're going to see on the test. Okay, so we're going to name this particular angle. Remember, to name an angle, you need to use 3 letters most of the time. So if I was to use 3 letters to name this angle, I would name it angle IOU. Also, I could name it angle UOI. Notice how we put the little angle mark in front of those 3 letters. That way we know it's an angle. If we didn't do that, 3 capital letters means a plane. So when you see this, that's how you read it, angle IOU. Now you could also name this angle O. And sometimes there's a number in here and it kind of looks like there was supposed to be a number in there. I don't know. Let's just pretend there's a 3 there. We're going to call this angle 3. Now there are some points that are on the interior of this angle. That would be point B and point L. And notice how I use 1 capital letter to name the points and I separate them with commas. The exterior points are the points that live outside the angle. So point K and point E are outside the angle. The points that are on the angle would be point I, O, and U. In this next section, we're going to find the measure of angles using what's called the protractor postulate. So this semicircle is your protractor. Remember, the rays for the angles each go through a certain spot on the protractor, and that spot has 2 numerical values, one for a scale going left to right and one for a scale going right to left. If you want the measure of a certain angle, you're basically just subtracting these 2 numbers. So number 8, you want the measure of angle AFB. So angle AFB, we're going to find it first, trace it with our finger or our pencil. It's right here. If you want the measure of angle AFB, you need how many degrees are in between these 2 rays. And you can find that by counting on your protractor or simply by subtracting. We have a 0 and a 55. 55 minus 0 gives you 55. That's definitely an acute angle if you look at it, and that matches up with the measure. It's less than 90. Now, if you didn't want to do the top numbers, you could have subtracted the bottom numbers. We could have subtracted 125 from 180. So 180 minus 125 still gives you the same 55. But it was probably a little bit easier to subtract with a 0. So anytime you see a 0, you should subtract with that 0. It's just easier. We're going to skip down to number 10. Find the measure of angle BFE. That's an obtuse angle. So you should be expecting a measure bigger than 90. So angle BFE, this ray goes through 2 numbers. I see one of them is a 0. So I'm going to use that bottom number. The other bottom number is 125. That's the measure of the angle then. 125. Subtract to find your angle measures when you use a protractor postulate. We'll do one more together. Let's do number 12. Measure of angle BFD. This sort of looks like a right angle to me, and it may be, but I don't want to say it's definitely a right angle until I calculate its measure. If it looks like a right angle, you should probably expect a number close to 90. It could still be acute, it could be a little bit less, or it could be obtuse, and it could be a little bit more. Let's subtract 2 numbers here. I'm going to do 140 minus 55. And that gives me 85 degrees, which is very close to 90. That's an acute angle. These next examples use what's called the angle addition postulate. We have 2 little angles and we want to find the measure of a big angle. So they ask you to find the measure of angle HEF. That's angle HEF. Use your finger or your pencil. How would you find the measure of angle HEF? Add your two little angles together. Little plus little equals big. So 53 plus 48 gives you 101 for that angle. You come down here to this one, they tell you the measure of this little angle. They also tell you the measure of angle QRS, that's the big angle. They tell you that it's 150 degrees. So if the whole thing is 150 and part of it's 28, what's the other part? This is where you subtract. When you have the big one and a little one, subtract. So we'll do 150 minus 28. That gives you 122 for that angle. Same concept now, except we're going to throw in this word bisect. Anytime you see the word bisect, that makes the problem super, super easy. Bisect means the angle gets split in half. So if ray LM bisects this big angle OLN, that means these two little angles here are the same measure. So if they're telling you the measure of the big angle, angle OLN, is 160, what does that mean about these two angles? They would both be 80. Sometimes they'll tell you the measure of that big angle. Sometimes they're going to tell you the measure of the little angle. What if angle OLM was 77? If that's 77, what's this one? That would be 77 as well. So angle MLN is also 77 degrees. How would you find the measure of the big angle? 77 times 2 would be 154.